but we have over almost 270 people who have registered. So, but we'll get started. We want to also respect those of you who have arrived right on time. So we will get started. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Luke Stocking, and I am the Director of Public Engagement. And it's my great honor to be your MC today, along with my colleague, Mayelen, who you will be hearing from shortly. So we're very happy that you have joined us for this very special national campaign launch for our Share Lent campaign, Reaping Our Rights. We will begin now. And as we begin, I would like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. Of course, we are joining from many places from across our country. And I'm used to offering a land acknowledgement from the territory where I live, but I happen to be joining from Montreal today. So I'm going to offer an acknowledgement, and people are free. If you know the territory where you are joining from, please feel free to, in the chat box, offer a land acknowledgement from the territory you are joining us from today, from across this land. So this land where I'm joining from is a land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose presence marks this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. And also thank you as these land acknowledgements come in. We also call on God to bless this gathering that we will have today as we launch into this very special season for us, the season of Lent as development and peace. And in that Lenten spirit, every year we carry out this beautiful Share Lent campaign that really gives witness to our faith in showing our solidarity throughout the world. So our agenda, we have a brief welcome, and we'll have welcoming words from our Executive Director, Carl Hétu, and the President of our National Council, Brenda Arakaza. Following that, Mayelen will give us an overview of the campaign, and then we will have our two very special guests joining us, Nnimmo and Eva. And we will have a very brief time after each of their sharing for just a few quick Q&A, question and answer period. And then Mayelen will offer an overview of the resources that we have available, and we'll have a closing prayer.
There you are, you're my friend.
We hope a very engaging agenda that we've put together for you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to someone much more inspiring than me to launch us into our program, our Executive Director, Carl Hétu. Carl, are you there?
Yes, I am there. Bonjour à tous et à toutes.
So hello to all of you.
Merci beaucoup d'être ici.
Thank you very much for being here once more in this launching of a Share Lent. It's a very important event. Lent is very important for the church, but also for development and peace. And to know that you're there warms my heart. It allows me to think that there are alternatives in our world, especially in our world that's suffering so much. You know, this morning, my boy called me up earlier, 2 hours ago, and said, "Dad, we're going to the hospital with Dominic and his wife because Raphael will be born." Raphael, well, this new member of humanity will be born here or tomorrow, maybe, I don't know, now and or tomorrow. I know there are a lot among you have been parents or grandparents even, or grandmother. They're certainly going to ask question, what kind of world did you put us into? And particularly this crazy world, a world where it seems that democracy is losing ground, a planet where the climate is more and more unfavorable because of the human activities, the polarization, extreme polarization for debates and exchanges and listening that are rarer. So where there are wars and conflicts, and where minerals to feed our telephones, our calls, our cars, and gobble up CO2. So frankly, that's where we are. We're in a world that needs peace, a world that needs to be gathered together. We are here. We have here a responsibility, an important responsibility. We in development and peace, because we know we owe everything to our newborn Raphael, to these young people who are starting this year in a world that needs hope. And during this year Lent, it's a unique time for all of us within development and peace. All of us in development and peace, it's a time to launch a message, a societal project, which is to build the kingdom of God on earth, which is a kingdom of love, of sharing, of respect, of forgiveness and dignity. And so it's quite evident that we're far from that there as a society, but it's thanks to people like you, not only here in Canada, but there are many other organizations, nonprofit organizations throughout the world, in Europe and other countries, that start the Lent like us today, full of hope through prayer, through our sharing, through the gifts that we make of ourselves as volunteers, as members, but also as persons who share their financial resources. We can build a kingdom worthy of God and say, welcome to Raphael, welcome to this world. Life is difficult, but there's Jesus there who has been on the cross, who showed us the path, and we work together, Raphael, with all the young children and babies that are being born in this world, to build a better world, worthy of God and of all of us.
All the babies, like my grandson Raphael, who is going to be born by tomorrow, let's welcome this new life, these new possibilities, everything that is in front of us, if we only want to listen to God's words of sharing love in everything we do. So this Lent, let's not forget, it's about sharing, it's about looking towards other Catholics in order to make an impact in this world that needs more and more and more love and support. So thank you very much for being here, and let's pray together that this world can change one person at a time, so that we can all be in it and make sure that people like Raphael and others can live in a safe and loving environment. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Carl, and congratulations on the pending birth of your grandchild. We now have the great pleasure to have with us the president of our National Council, Brenda Arakaza, who is in a room here somewhere, and with me at our office here in Montreal. We actually have young people from across all of Canada joining us this weekend here at our office for our National Youth Assembly. And I think Brenda may be with all of those young people from across the country. Now, Brenda, are you there to bring your greetings?
Yes, thank you, Luke. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the quite well sound able to speak as clearly as possible with them, but I know that they have joined us virtually. So it's such a pleasure for me to be able to welcome everyone for this launch of our campaign, our Share Lent. Especially the fact that we are having the youth assembly here today, and the connection in this launch of this campaign especially is the fact that it'll allow us to go back to truly the reason why all of us have started to be involved at Development and Peace. And I'm saying that with confidence. I am 100% sure. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you as we begin, and I think it's so connected to what Carl has shared with us just before, is that connection of receiving the gift of Jesus with a new life. I think this campaign is reminding us of that. The gift of the new life can be done differently by planting the seeds in that sense. And I think this is a moment for us to discern and to go back to what we have planted as seeds. Alors, lorsqu'on dit ensemble cultivons nos droits, je pense que
so when we say together, cultivate our get rights, I think we want to share what we have. More than ever, we need to connect ourselves to the basic source, and to do that, to learn the dignity of our partners, but also beyond that, we have to gather the fruits that we want for this Lent. The theme this year will be to live the theme of liberation, and I think that for us in development and peace, we understand this theme even more so, and it's almost even more important because talking about this, we insist on the importance of listening, the cries of the marginalized, and the involvement we can offer. I think Lent gives us the chance through the young people and all of this to work on this. And I think the Lent, that's why we call it sharing Lent. It goes beyond the young people. It's a community affair. So I think that this launching today is a time which is a season of renewal. So I invite you, each one of you, as a believer, as faithful, as member of Development and Peace, to undertake this journey and do it in solidarity. I think that this is how we're going to experience what we're all about, because by cultivating our voices, we'll sow, and so that before we can harvest. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brenda, for the very full of hope expression you just stated. And now we're going to go on to the campaign itself. To present the campaign, I'm going to invite my colleague, Mayelen, to intervene. Mic is yours, Mayelen. Hello, everybody. My name is Mayelen. I am responsible for the campaign for development and peace. I developed the Share Lent campaign and the one in the fall. So our theme is reaping our rights. Cultivons nos droits. We always have to create hope. So you have there the poster. We have there a wonderful little child. I was wondering if you heard this story. Who is this little girl? Chair again. Who is this little girl? Well, this little girl, she's no other than the daughter of one of our partners, Carlo Batiran, who comes from Indonesia. A partner and another story, very touching. When we found out that he was his daughter, he explained that her Amaluia, because she couldn't come to Canada to meet people in development and peace. One of our partners of Peru had presented the ethic case of Peru, and that's how it's inspired the name, that not to lie. So we felt it was a good example. We're happy that the daughter of Carlo Batiran. So let's change again, reaping our rights. Just to put you in the mood, I'm going to present the clip and then we'll see the pictures of our different partners that are presented this year, and you'll be able to recognize them later on today when we'll talk about our partners.
Sowing seeds of justice, seeing them take root, reaping peace and dignity. This is at the heart of the mission of Development and Peace, Caritas Canada. Since 1967, we have been supporting projects in the Global South that tackle the root causes of poverty, oppression, and inequality. We work with local partners who are trusted by the communities they serve to help them take charge of their own development. In solidarity with the most vulnerable populations, we work to enable them to reap their human, social, economic, ecological, and political rights. Our transformative work is possible thanks to the generosity and support of our members and the Canadian people who stand by us. Together, let's create hope and work toward reaping our rights. Please give generously.
So, thank you very much, Luc. So, there's a quick overview. I don't know if you recognized it in the video. We chose this year 3 countries to highlight. So, there was Nigeria with our partner HOMEF, Home of Mother Earth Foundation. Look, go down. The other country is Bolivia with the Fundacion NUNA Bolivia, and Payo Payo in Indonesia, which is Payo Payo. So these are some of the pictures that our partners sent to us. And without more ado, I'm going to present our guests who are with us today.
I am going to start today by presenting Eva Colque. She is the Executive Director of Fundacion NUNA, our partner in Bolivia. She is an agricultural engineer. She specialized in agroecology and rural development, as well as management and a lot of other things she studied. She is fluent in Spanish and Aymara, which is one of the local languages of the indigenous populations over there. And she is distinguished by her horizontal approach, meaning that her aim is to support communities in a way that fosters equality and active participation, promoting collaboration based on mutual respect. So please welcome Eva Colque.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to thank you for your invitation to join you through this virtual meeting with Development and Peace. So we're going to give you a little bit of an idea of who we are, tell you a little bit of our story, and what is happening in our country in Bolivia. Bolivia is located in the center of South America with a population of about 11.35 million and a great deal of diversity in the ecology. We begin with the great mountains of the Andes and we go down to the sea at 600 meters there. Until then we can get into the jungle in the Amazon. And so some of the richness in Bolivia, we have a lot of natural resources, of course, but we have the greatest salt reserves, and then we have a beautiful jungle reserve, and we have a wonderful park called the Madidi, and we also have the mountains, the Andes. And so you see that for yourself in the various pictures we have shown you here. And so we also have, in the past few years, and for many of the ancestral populations, First Nations, we have 36 nations in Bolivia with 37 languages that we speak on an everyday basis. The greater majority of the groups are from the Quechua, Aymara, and Guarani. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the historical moments that we have been experiencing these past few years. In 2009, we approved the political constitutions of our country. So it's no longer the Republic of Bolivia. Our new constitution includes the 36 nations I just mentioned to you, but mainly the constitution respects self-determination of the ancestral peoples. And then we have several, even you can set our own norms and laws. And so there are many things in the constitutions for us, but the most important thing is that we have included the First Nations, the ancestral people. And so apart from this, we had, in 2010, we had the March for Tipnis. These are ancestral people from the very highlands, we call that. And they come down marching because they came down marching to defend their land because they were going to be threatened by the big business. And this march really was a struggle. It's a struggle, you know. It was a historical moment for the ancestral people. Now they are beginning to fight for themselves, for their territory. And then we had a series of elections and crises in 2019 because we moved from a government where we had 14 years they were in charge, dominant, and it was an indigenous people represented by Evo Morales, who really wanted to couldn't stay there indefinitely, and people didn't allow him. And so there was a great confrontation between the people. And so based on that, we created this. This is where the crisis came from. Then we have modern crises. It is an impressive amount of gas that we have that brings a lot of money into the country. And so we have the distribution among the local governments. But right now, there is a crisis and the lack of dollars that we have. And so we are really going through several difficulties right now. In parallel with all of these events that I just talked to you about over the past few years, it has been very difficult for us because of the climate phenomena that is happening everywhere across the globe. So in Bolivia, we really did suffer a great deal with drought, and we know this is a worldwide problem, but there are two major interests. We have the great business, big business, and then we've got the cultural people that we're killing and burning, and these are the territories where the indigenous people live. And so the majority of these territories are protected lands, and according to the constitutions, they cannot go in there and destroy or take over. So we have to respect these territories. But it's included in the Constitution, but there are major, major fires happening. Well, another thing that we identify is the mining. But what is happening with these mines? It's okay to exploit the mines, but the contamination of the water is happening. And the major part of the businesses, the mining businesses there that are here, are contaminating the water. And what is happening is it is going into the rivers. Usually this mineral resource exists in the land where our ancestral people live. So this is causing huge problems for the health of the people because of contamination. And now this was made even worse, as we know, and this was worldwide, of course. That's where we identified the fact that we do not have the conditions for healthcare, and the infrastructure does not exist. We don't have enough doctors, we don't have nurses, and the majority of the people chose to use natural medicine, like some mainly natural plants and everything, because nobody can access a health system that is not available. So what we were describing to you is kind of a national phenomena. So let's start getting to look at what's happening at the local level now. So what we have been able to identify in the different municipalities and places where we live, we are really eating into our natural resources such as water, and this is generating, plus the lack of opportunity to work, it's causing massive migration of the young men and young adults. So they're leaving the communities. The children and the women and the elderly stay in the communities. The others are gone. And so we have our work we initiated there in Warina. We're in the municipality of Curva, Escoma, Anacoraimes, and Mocomoco, especially in the Department of La Paz. This is where our main intervention happens. So what is NUNA, you might ask? NUNA is a word in Quechua, which means consciousness. Our mission is to build just relationships, plural relationships, in order to protect life and nature. That is what we want to do for the future. What are the values and what are the principles that are guide us? We want to respect self-determination of all of the people, and we want to coordinate with them various actions that we want to put in place. Other principle is that we are not going to impose ourselves upon anybody. What we want to do is build together the projects or help the families and the communities who want to begin projects. But mainly, I want to say that all of this work has to be founded on trust. And how did we go about bringing this about? Is both by working together and trying to be transparent in our daily work. Next, please. So there are various areas for action, or we say we have like 2 feet. We have the social, political, and we've got the productive economy. So kind of like 2 legs, right? And so we're looking at a great deal. Next. Then we have we call it one of the feet, we call the social political area, where men and women of the communities, of the IUS, from the various municipalities and the base grassroots organization come together and to participate, elect, and decide together. Why? In order to allow for the people to integrate and to have their word and their place in the organic life of the communities and in their own lives. And at NUNA, we say our political social is very important. And what is the politics, the political? It is to participate and to decide. And we say that the families, the men, women, and the children, the teenagers and adolescents and adults, we have to strengthen them in this, and by so doing, they will be able to go forward. And how do we go about doing this? How are we helping them to be able to participate and become part of our groups? So the communities, the men and the women there are there, but we're trying to wake them up, move them and make them more aware, more conscious. And it is this consciousness of wanting to participate in everything. So what do? We do this through meetings, by giving talks and sharing together, organizing events for their own self-criticism, for reflections, where we analyze together the men and women of the different communities. But mainly, we work on relationships. Why? Relationships in our daily lives, and in a context where we have patriarchy, and we are trying to kind of like generate a type of relationship that is more inclusive. Okay, another right we have is to information, and so we want to give a lot of information about our political constitution of the state and the rights of the indigenous people, their autonomy, the municipal laws. And when we have 348, law 348 is to try and reduce violence in the family and in the communities, great deal of violence. And this is what we are trying to do now, trying to do a lot of prevention in this area. Another thing that we are trying to do is have some type of impact on public policy for the good of the people, for the good of the community. This time, as we were saying, for our social politics, we were talking about participation. And so we have a population of 4,959 people. That's men, women, children, and teenagers, youth, and older people, the elderly, adults. But it's very important for us to have all of these statistics, and gender is important. So you're trying to get men and women participating. We see that in the area of the social, we have more of a community base, eh? And so we have greater participation on the part of men or young of males, 62 versus the 38 female. We haven't been able to really get to 50-50, but we're trying. The next one is the other foot I was telling you about. We're standing on 2 feet. So now we're going on the productive economy. We at NUNA work on the production of agroecological areas through the implementation of the new technology for agriculture and for the transformation of people who are living in the various communities. So as I was telling you, in the area of productive agriculture, we We are trying to validate the family, for example, how to protect the soil, the land. Our grandparents did this, our forerunners did this, and we had these fences. We used to try and protect the earth, and we had terraces and all kinds of different ways of farming. And these are practices that we can kind of like go and get and use at the local level once again. And they are wonderful practices for the preservation of the earth. And the places where we live are areas that are very, very dry areas. And the majority of the production always depends on rain, right? And so we're looking at how we might be able to kind of like help to harvest the water, you know, to keep it and to protect it. And so it's going to be this preservation of water that's important. And now we move to the next slide. So we're looking at the practices of the earth, and at the same time, we are looking at all kinds of organic means and organic means to fertilize the earth, to feed the earth, but always in a way that is protective and that is good for the earth. How can we improve? How can we care for? How can we preserve? And so we look at the families, we accompany them, and we look at the various practices, the ecological practices that are best for us, especially, like I said, for fertilizers. These fertilizers come from the materials that exist in each one of the communities. Why? Why? What's it used for? Why are we doing so much work in this area, in the area of fertilizers? It is because the zones where we live are kind of desert zone, so there's a lack of water, and the time for the production of natural plants and that really is very reduced and very little. And so we just have one harvest a year. So what we're trying to do with the families is that we are, like we were saying, the area for our project and for the foundation we have is to support and sustain the work, protection of water and of the earth, because this is food security for the people. And therefore, we say that every action that we do to support the families helps the families to eat better, because there are so many problems with the lack of nutrition or bad nutrition. And the base of the food that we eat in the families are come from like corn and potatoes, and but we're looking for more variety, and we're trying to, you know, before we used to always plant greens, but now we're trying to work more with fruit. As you can see, there's the papaya, grapes. We saw through by the practice, because theory indicates that fruit can produce up to 2,500 meters above the sea, but we are higher up. And so it's not necessarily true. Today, at 3,600 above sea level, we are producing fruit when they told us it would be impossible, that we can't do that over 2,500. All of this. Next one. Apart from all of this, we want to strengthen not only the production of traditional agriculture, which in the majority of the peoples, but we're trying to, you know, it's important to help the people, and the customs is maybe to always want to cultivate the things we've always done, the traditional type of agriculture. But today, the families, we're trying to teach them that, see, the earth is tired, it doesn't produce like before. And so what's happening is the family is growing, but no, the farms and everything are not getting bigger. So this is happening all the time. So the little parts of the land, the little plots of land, they aren't big enough for the larger families today. And that is why there are structures in place, but we have to learn how to manipulate them, how to use them. You have to leave the earth an opportunity to rest, and then it will produce better afterwards. But this takes a lot of education, and we are doing a lot of intense work in this area because the earth is being taken, everything is taken away from it, and this is the theme of the preservation of the earth. And like we were describing it, not just for the vegetables and the fruits, but also for our traditional plants and our traditional agriculture. I want to go faster, okay? Because time is really moving on here. Let's keep going. Great. Everything that we were saying here about the greenery, the green plants I was talking, is always to ensure food security. And apart from that, we are completing this, okay, for the greens, but also we're using for the production of all of our animal production and everything. Next, please. And taking care of our animals and all of this is, how can I say this? Yeah, we're teaching the families. We don't have doctors, we don't have vets to help to take care of the animals. So we have to be able to learn what to do and what to feed them so they will be well. So we don't have to be dependent on a vet from the outside. Transformation of our food, the primary matter that we produced in the communities, we wonder how we can transform these foods so that we can get money from when we bring it to the local market, the internal markets that we have, and we can bring these transformed foods, for example, food, cheese, ice cream, bread. You see, we are using a lot of maize, a lot of corn. What we've talked about here is the area of social politics. We still have a low rate of the participation of women, lower. And so here in the area of productive economy, you see a little bit of an increase here. And we've been able to make strides. And so it's practically equal in this area. What we've learned from our experiences, what we see here is many of the things that we have learned. We have seen that the communities they can. And so we go back to some of these experiences, and they have seen for themselves. Before, we were talked and talked and talked and talked, but now we're getting down to practicing. We're getting down to the practice of these things, putting it into getting productive and getting concrete. So what is the impact on the community? Well, we've seen that we are constantly in relationship with the different communities, like we live with them, practically speaking. And we believe that this has made it possible for us, and we are have been able to make the gains we have made. That's why we have to continue. We have to continue with working with the communities on a permanent basis. You can't just do it for a while and then let go. We don't want to have to call upon the doctor to visit. We want to be able to take care of ourselves. What have we been able to accomplish? Well, we're saying that we have an integral or holistic focus in our in social politics and our productive economy. And what we call this, we have the spiritual, which is intangible also, and the productive is more material, right? And so that's why we say that we have to be holistic, integrated. The participation of the community, we feel that we have to continue to promote this type of participation and help people to take decisions on important issues that will change their lives, that will impact the life of their community and their municipality. Apart from that, we said we have to adapt ourselves. We have to adapt to the context of the families, and not the families to the project. the opposite. And we also believe that what we are doing is sustainable time-wise because we are supporting the structures like the water and all of the seeds and everything. So if we are able to get to do this, that will ensure a better future. And that's very important for us. And this is kind of like the line that is going to lead us to better economy. Another thing is, you see, we have to articulate, we have to be able to put into words all of these things that we're talking about. The whole technical area, something that has to be developed. Some of the challenges we are up against. Well, the challenges that we have to face is, like I said, migration of the young people, particularly, and particularly young males. We also saw that there is a individualism, we call it, particularismo is individualism. In the past, the communities used to come together and organize themselves. They used to think more community. Now it's all fragmented. They've been divided. And therefore, what we have to do is recuperate, go back to that way of organizing ourselves so that we can articulate once again what it is that we learned from our ancestors. It's a new context, a new world, and so individualism is predominant. So the challenge is right now is to get organized. And then we're talking about the different parties. We have many of the actions that we are seeing today. We are seeing that comes about by we become, divided with these political parties. And with very, very sad, another challenge we have is that it's our elderly people, the elderly women and the elderly men are being abandoned by the community, by the state. And another one of the challenges is to work on equity as far as gender is concerned. So thank you very much. I think that I have concluded. You might have some questions and I'd be happy to answer them if you do. Thank you, Eva, for this lovely presentation. Only because we see time really moving on, I would say that we could go to the next one, and we will come back with the two partners afterwards.
So it is my pleasure to welcome Nnimmo Bassey. He is the Executive Director of HOMEF, which means Home of Mother Earth Foundation. He is an architect and a writer. He is a member of the steering committee of Oil Watch International. He's been a long-time defender of human rights and the environment. He advocates and raises awareness of the damages caused by oil companies to the environment and to local populations. He is also a recipient of numerous awards, including the Right Livelihood Award, also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize. So without further ado, please welcome Nnimmo Bassey.
Thank you so very much, and apologies for joining a bit late. So, my organization is Health of Mother Earth Foundation, and we focus on questioning the foundational roots of the challenges that's confronting the world today. We work mostly in Nigeria, but we are Pan-Africanists, so Africa is.
And if you have your video on, if you can please turn it off, because with your videos off too, that will also help with the bandwidth. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do hear you, Nnimmo. Thank you.
Apologies, I had issues with my connection, and so I'm joining you with that video. All right, thank you for understanding. I was saying in my organization, we work basically to uncover the roots of the socio-ecological problems in the world. But Nigeria is our base, so we work mostly in Nigeria, but we are also Pan-Africanists. So we work in other countries in Africa, working with movements or food rights movements, as well as climate justice movements on the continent. In Health of Mother Earth Foundation, we work on 4 major work tracks. One is hunger politics, where we do not ask the question, how many people are hungry? We're asking the question, why are people hungry? And this puts us to work with farmers, small-scale farmers, to defend their land, to promote agroecology, and to generally promote food sovereignty. On the second work track, we call it fossil politics. And under fossil politics, our work covers climate justice. We defend our biodiversity, protecting the forest. We work mostly also on against oil pollution by multinational corporations who are operating in the Niger Delta. And this is really enormous work. And then we have a space we call Ikike, which is our knowledge space, that everyone has a right to hold knowledge and to share it. Now, our partnership with development and peace has come at a time when Nigeria is undergoing very serious environmental and political crisis. And our project, Healing Our Land, Challenging Extraction and Land Grabbing, is very central to resolving the crisis that we are confronting. And this is being done from bottom up, working with the grassroots, the communities themselves who are facing the crisis head on. And we're seeing a lot of mobilization and a lot of sharing of knowledge from one community to another. One thing that has really promoted or propelled us this the past few years is the fact that we are traumatized by the kind of political and geopolitical situation we're seeing in the world today. People are have adverse impact of climate change, but sometimes the stories about climate change end up with just dealing with the carbon in the atmosphere. And few people are speaking about the carbon that is being extracted daily in the oil and gas fields, as well as the coal fields. And the struggle in Nigeria has been a struggle for people to have clean water to drink, and also to have safe lands on which to cultivate their crops. And daily, this has been a big struggle. For 65 years, major transnational oil companies have persistently polluted the Niger Delta continuously on a daily basis. As we speak right now, there are oil spills ongoing somewhere in the Niger Delta. So we're having our land polluted, our waters polluted, the air polluted by gas flaring, major gas burning 24 hours every day for decades. Through all this pollution, people are confronted with all kinds of health problems, cancers, blood disorders, skin diseases, breathing difficulties. People are having birth defects. They're having a lot of preterm births, and generally life expectancy in the communities we work with has been a dismal, a very highly reduced 41 years. And it is enormous, and it's a great tragedy. So in this kind of situation, working with the people and getting them to stand for their right is more or less something that we don't really have an option, because with the children, the youths, the elderly, they're all living in a very damaged environment. And we do know, and we do say always, that our environment is our life. And so anybody who contaminates and pollutes our environment is attacking our right to life, attacking our right to enjoy a clean environment, attacking our right to live in harmony with other beings that we share planet Earth with. In other words, pollution is an insult on Mother Earth. It's an insult on our right to life. And so everything we do is to heal our land, And that is what we are focusing on in this partnership with development and peace. And healing our land means that we're working on the culture of life, not the culture of death that is being presented by capitalism, by continuous search for profit, for unending growth, unending production and consumption, whereas without recognizing the fact that we are living on a finite planet rather. We are living on a planet, we don't have planet B. We have just one planet in the whole of the galaxies, as far as we know, that humans can live and thrive the way God and nature have given us the opportunity to do. So our work entails looking at the impact of colonialism, imperialism, and the continuous disjointed manner by which international financial institutions are pushing nations into deeper poverty and into deeper ecological crisis. Right now in the Niger Delta, where we do a lot of our work, research has shown, research by United Nations Environment Program, research also by an agency that has been set up by one of the states in the Niger Delta, showed that the level of pollution of the water bodies in some areas is 1 million times above safe limits. And in one particular state in the Niger Delta, the level of pollution is 1.5 barrels of crude oil per capita. And that state has 2.5 million people. The entire Niger Delta has about 40 million people, and the area is gravely contaminated, all for the profit of oil corporations. Of late, we have focused our campaign also on one particular oil well that blew up in 2020, April 2020. Is an oil well that is a little bit offshore, but you can see from the coastline. It's where fishers, area that fishers do go to fish, and now is an area that has been burning and spilling crude for almost 4 years. I'll be asking the questions. We've produced documentaries on it. We've had media campaigns on it. The community people are speaking. And at the moment, the community people are planning, contemplating litigation. And that brings me to the point of how to get these polluters to listen. Getting them to listen by pleading with them has not worked. In the past, communities have been destroyed by the military, sponsored by corporations, just because communities ask for dialogue. So this is very disturbing. The communities understand that the enduring solution to their problem must come from dialogue, must come from peaceful agitation, must come from peaceful mobilization. But the politicians, as well as the corporations, prefer open conflict. And it's almost like a David and Goliath kind of conflict. And communities can't face this kind of conflict except they just stand together, link their hands, and say, no, enough is enough. We don't want this anymore. And they're doing this by monitoring the environment. Local people in our communities are the first to report when there's a crisis, when there's a pollution. They're the first to report the magnitude. They're the first to alert the media about what is going on. And this has made it very difficult for the polluters to hide their pollution. And so one of the things we're doing in the present project that we're having together is to train the farmers to monitor and report what is going on in the environment, as well as prepare a plan for restoration. And we're taking on this in on multiple levels. We're approaching this on multiple levels, working with government agencies, working with community structures, the agencies of government that are ready to listen and are ready to help the people. So we're working together to learn on how to restore this environment so that we can also leave something for future generations and not leave a legacy of toxic environment that would kill them and deny them a life, a place to live in. So I'll just mention a few more examples of what is going on, the level of pollution that is going on that we have to confront. The good thing is that all is not lost. All is not lost because right now there's a bit more attention being paid by the polluters to what is going on, because the communities have been challenging them in courts both in Nigeria and in the global north, courts in the United States, courts in Europe, in the UK, Netherlands, and it's almost like there's no way to hide for these polluters. And unfortunately, rather than stepping up and taking action to clean up, some of these corporations are now doing what they call divestment, which is very different from what communities campaign, what is being the campaign in the global north. What they simply do is to sell off their onshore lands or onshore fields and move into deeper waters where they could do things without any kind of accountability, without any supervision, and without any level of responsibility. But where they can make more profit, they can destroy, pollute the ocean, and escape with all the profit they can get. So we are realizing this and the level of responses that we're having. We are focusing our attention in building networks of community monitors, building networks of farmers and fishers, equipping them with knowledge and learning from them also, reflecting on us on struggles for solidarity, for cooperation and integration, working with them to diagnose what the problems really are, who are the ones causing the problems, and then deciding together what are the actions that need to be taken. So we at the same time, we're training communities on agroecology, farming without dependence on artificial inputs, chemical inputs that destroy soils. And so more and more communities are taking on working with nature, growing crops in ways that growing crops in ways that respect indigenous species, and of course avoiding pesticides and herbicides that are destructive of the species around us, destructive of the soils, and creating more harm than good. And so I would say that we are moving away from just resisting, but building the capacities of communities to defend their territories, to restore their territories, to take charge. This is levels of self-determination. That means struggling for justice, struggling for dignity, and struggling for inclusion. These are some of the things we're doing in the project we're focusing on, and generally working on climate issues, working on food issues, working on building knowledge, and of course, exposing and expanding the calls for action by communities. I would like to take some questions, and so I would just, if there are questions on what I've said, so that we can dig deeper into the situation in Nigeria or in Africa, where climate action is taking very wrong direction. Territories are being sold to carbon speculators who are pretending and selling the lie to the world that they can keep on polluting, while forests in Africa, forests in Nigeria would be expected to absorb the equivalent amount of pollution that they are releasing from their factories. I thank you for your attention. I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Nnimmo. So we're going to take questions, and the floor is open for Nnimmo and Eva. If you have any questions.
Yes, why don't we begin with that question? So we do have a little bit of time for some questions. And there was a question in the chat for Eva. I hope you're still there, Eva. And the question was posed in French from Mario Sir. So Eva, if you have the translation to Spanish, I'll just say the question. Est-ce que l'on a introduit la culture des légumes et fruits en alternance avec les mets et les pommes de terre?
Of fruits and also from potatoes. Yes, we introduce different fruit and vegetables and potatoes and corn. As I said, it's the basic of our food, basic food for most of us. And so we have choyo. And very, very few vegetables. That's the major problem in terms of food. So that's why there's malnutrition. There's no vitamins in food. So it's mostly carbohydrates. And because before, what were they producing?
We have a question from Sister Patricia for Nnimmo. What Canadian oil companies are involved in Nigeria, if any?
Thank you, Luke. But most of the corporations working in Nigeria from other United States, I don't think there's any major, I'm not sure there's any major investment in terms of oil coming from Canada. It's mostly, we're having mostly United States, from Europe, and from Asia, and as well as from the Middle East, actually.
Thank you, Nnimmo. There's another question here from Bill Mackesy, and I think it's a question for you again, Nnimmo. Are there any proposed changes to legislation dealing with the extraction of minerals and oil? And maybe it might also be an interesting question for Eva as well too. So maybe we could start with Nnimmo, and then because Eva, you also spoke of, about extraction in Bolivia too. So maybe we could hear from both of you.
Yes, we have two key. There are a lot of laws, but some of them are not worth the paper on which they're written. There's a fairly good Solid Minerals Act that we have that came into law in 2007. It allows for community consultations and for it allows for restoration of the land after mining. But we do know that once mining occurs, the land can not really go back to what it used to be. But when it comes to petroleum resources, we have what is known as the Petroleum Industry Act, which came into being in 2021 and was amended again in 2022. Now, that act is anti-people and anti-environment, because all it's promoting is extraction of crude oil and gas. It's all about revenue. And it's almost like a law drawn up by the oil corporations. It allows for the only concession for communities is that some communities will receive 3% of production cost, of the cost of how much the corporate, not the profit, not a percentage of profit, 3% of production cost. That's what will go to the communities. And then they have a clause in the law that says that if there's any pipeline leakage, pipeline breakage, vandalism, or any third-party interference with the pipelines, communities will be held accountable. So the law criminalizes whole communities, and communities are now being expected to police the pipelines for oil companies, to police the pipeline for the military, whose job, these are the people who are equipped. The communities don't have any means of patrolling pipelines, are not paid for it. It's not their job to patrol pipelines, but the companies use this law to avoid action, accountability for what is going on. So the law appears to consider communities in terms of benefits, but at the same time has a clause that will ensure that communities don't receive a dime, because they will always be accused of being accessories to whatever happens due to corporate irresponsibility and corporate inability to do things in a way that is fair and just.
Thank you, Nnimmo. And Eva, would you like to also respond to that question in the context of Bolivia, if you find it relevant?
Yes. We have said that in the context of mining, and there have been norms that have been established, especially for the mining. But right now, we are really going against the rights of the people. Apart from the fact that we have legislation to protect the ancestral people, apart from having legislation that they cannot go into certain protected areas, such as the territories I talked to you about, the ancestral lands. And so there has to be a consultation with the people first. But our own government does not respect this at all. They open up new roads and to help the companies, and all the norms and everything are not being applied. Right now, we are not respecting these. these norms, and people are really vulnerable. So the ancestral people right now are fighting. And in the majority of the cases, they have decided to have recourse to international institutions like the siege to speak out against, to denounce what's happening to them. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. And I wish we could take more time for more questions. However, the time is short. But there was one more question, and I know it's something that is always a question when we have our guests join us for these types of events. And that question is for both of you, and that is, how can we in Canada at Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, best be allies to you and your causes?
Well, international solidarity is always very useful because sometimes our peoples get ignored when they make the complaints about the harms in the environment. And so the first thing I would ask is that through the agency of our relationship with Caritas, that our stories be told to the wider audience. Like the video that we just produced recently, that is excellent tool. Yesterday at our team building meeting, we played that video and it was very empowering even for Nigerians to watch. And so people out in Canada, if they get to see more of the images and hear more of the stories from those who are living this experience, just knowing that other people care about what is going on with us is very empowering and very, very energizing because we need the strength to look back and say we're not alone, to stand, to fight together. So just paying attention to what is happening to us is very important, and then repeating that story to constituencies over there. Bear us in mind, it's a very traumatic situation, and so any form of care, any show of care is very vital to what is going on with us.
Thank you, Nnimmo. And Eva?
Regarding the new constitution, we have the question, if we have favored the ancestral peoples. No. In reality, in the past, we didn't even give recognition to them with their existence. And in the new constitution, in this multinational reality, we have included the 36 nations, like I told you. However, in each one of the nations that we're talking about, in this case, the Caracara, in this government right now, that we suppose is an indigenous government, we say, we have really done away with the rights of the people worse than before. Really, they have really taken advantage of the people. And nothing, I would say, or very little has changed. We speak out, we denounce, and like I was saying earlier, like for the mines are really a big problem because there's all of the relationships and with these big companies, they come in and it exists with the government, right? So, and the constitutions don't say much about the mining to protect the rights of the indigenous people. We don't defend them. So some of us might say, I don't even know these 36 nations, but others say they are having recourse to international justice in order to get some type of protection. So I think this actual government has been the worst one to deal with the rights of these people.
Thank you, Eva. And for everybody, Eva was responding to the question from Carmen in the chat box. Thank you. At this point, I'm afraid we don't have time for more questions. Our time is going by very quickly. But please, I would like all of us to join me. You can use your reaction buttons or open your cameras to show your applause and show our gratitude to Eva and Nnimmo for joining us today. Eva and Nnimmo, by sharing your stories today, I think you have inspired us all with the way you are creating hope by helping the people in your communities in Bolivia and Nigeria to reap their rights. And I think all of us heard very clearly the call to share your stories, and we will be sharing your stories through our Share Lent campaign with many thousands of people across this whole land. So thank you so much for being here today and inspiring us. At this stage, I'm going to turn it back over to Maya-Len, who will go over quickly some of the resources that we have to help you tell Eva and Nnimmo stories and the stories of Bolivia and Nigeria as we launch the Share Lent campaign today. So back to you, Maya-Len, and I'll share the screen.
So thank you, Luke. So first of all, I invite you to visit our website. You will find there many different sections, such as an overview of the campaign, including all our videos. I really encourage you to watch them because they are really interesting, especially the testimonial videos featuring the different partners presented in the campaign. You will find different resources, such as our mini mag. You can see on the cover Carno and his daughter.
Carno's coming to British Columbia in February, so in a week. He'll be in the west part of the country. Join us on the 29th of February for the webinar with Carno, whether he comes through Canada. We also have news. If you haven't seen them, the prayer card, prayers of the faithful, the way of the cross, solidarity calendar, symbols of solidarity. So there's the short talk. There's the reflections we have each week that you'll be able to find in the resource section. And these are the videos. I've talked about them. Go and see these videos. We see the work of the partners. And then we have something new. You have snake and ladder game, in where we include a lot of different the Catholic social teachings and our work of solidarity. We have a new share year round to give it to you, matching fun. So during this Lent, if somebody increases their amount or it becomes share round, I think it will be doubled. So that's it. And if you want to know more about the campaign, it's still in a different training. There is in the events on the internet, you'll see things in each region that's going on. And I think that's it.
Fast overview for everybody, but of course, many of you, as Maya-Len said, have had the chance, and if you haven't had the chance, will have the chance to really look more closely at the materials that we've just gone over at the workshops taking place all across Canada, our hardworking members and animators that are organizing those. Every year, for those that don't know, every year we reach more than over 1,000 people with these workshops, local workshops, held both in person and online across the country. So if you haven't gone to a workshop, we hope you will take advantage of that. And we will now close right on time, I might add, with our closing prayer. So this is our prayer card that Maya-Len mentioned, that we have as our thematic prayer through the whole 5 years of our Create Hope theme. And maybe I will just ask for one volunteer who can read the prayer with me, alternating in French and English. So I will read a paragraph in English, and can I have a volunteer who would be willing to do the French? Maybe Hélène, are you still there, Hélène, our Director of Communications and Campaigns that leads our team that has done such an amazing job pulling this Share Lent campaign together? Hélène, would you be okay to do the French? Merci. So let's put ourselves therefore before God as we bring this launch of our Share Lent campaign to a close. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Loving God, we believe that we are one great human family. You call us to walk together and to recognize the dignity of every person.
Nous croyons que nous partageons une maison commune. Tu nous appelles à prendre soin de toute la création.
We believe in the sanctity of life. You call us to treat all people with kindness and compassion in the way of Christ.
Nous croyons en
We
ton règne.
believe that you reign in justice, peace, and joy. You call us to put your word into practice to build a more just, human, and joyful world. Seigneur Jésus,
Guide us to be in solidarity with the joys, hopes, sorrows, and anxieties of all people, especially those impoverished by unjust socioeconomic and political systems.
Aide-nous à marcher dans tes pas et à
help us to
répandre
follow in your footsteps, to be bearers of the good news.
Holy Spirit, inspire us to find new and creative ways of responding to your calls.
renforce notre engagement à nourrir l'espoir dans le monde.
Strengthen us in our commitment to create hope in our world. Amen.
Amen.
So this brings our launch to a close, but really the close is really the beginning. So again, we wish you well as you carry this message, this important message, the message you heard from Nnimmo and Eva today, out into our communities, into our parishes, our schools, our places of work, everywhere where we can bring this message and this Share Lent campaign to life. So thank you everybody for being here, for helping us to create hope by reaping the rights of those around the world. Thank you so much, and bon carême à tous. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank
Bye
you.
tout le monde.